Hi, I'm Tim Stabler with NTT DATA. I lead Data and AI globally for our insurance business unit. And here we're going to talk to you about our periodic table of agentic assets and how do we think about agentic AI along the insurance business value chain. When we think about agentic AI, we wanted a way to actually frame our thoughts, right? So we created this periodic table. And big picture, really what it does is group our actual use cases in three big ways. One is our horizontal use cases. These are use cases that actually function from an IT perspective, corporate functions, so business, finance, etc. And then we also think about it from an industry domain perspective, right? So how do we think about the insurance value chain, all the way from IGO, NIGO, which we'll show here in a minute, to claims, to underwriting, right? And all the use cases surrounding that. In addition, we think about agentic AI not only from the technology perspective, but from the business perspective, right? So how do we think about ROI, right? How do we think about the ROI of this technology up front? How do we think about actually shortening the time to production, right? From a technology perspective, and also the change management, right? As you actually get use out of these tools, how do you actually get use out of them at scale in production, right? And so all of the assets that we have are framed from those perspectives. So when we think about our assets, right, just to show you an example, even before we actually talk about the use case itself, right, we even think about ROI, right? So from an ROI perspective, we have built an ROI calculator, which we can show here. The intent of this is actually before you even implement agentic AI, we want to make sure you're actually getting value out of it. So we actually have industry benchmarks on what it actually costs to get these things into production, and how do we actually think about what use cases make the most sense from a process perspective, and then end to end in terms of the use case, all the way from the technology, the change management, the integrations, right? What's the actual total cost of that going to be? And then how do we actually measure the benefits you're going to receive for the process itself? So the Agentic ROI calculator captures all of that for us up front, so we can know as early as possible if you're actually going to get value actually out of this asset. So one of the elements we're actually going to go into today is our IGO, NIGO use case. You know, it incorporates a lot of the features of Agentic AI that are important, right? So if you think about gathering unstructured and structured data, being able to extract that all in one place, and actually being able to document the process, even from a compliance perspective. Now we can go from having either this done manually or having traditional tools like RPA that had hard ceilings, right? Now with the beauty of LLMs, right, we can actually use decisioning and reasoning agents fine-tuned on insurance to actually document the entire process, from data extraction to the triage to the actual all the way through the IGO, NIGO process itself to actually know kind of what the recommendations are and where things need to get corrected. Now you're actually all doing it with agents, right? So you can see in this demo, and the demo is actually going to show how this is happening and documenting the actual process itself, from all the way from the data entry side and validation to the actual analysis side, right? So we're going to extract all the information, we're going to put in a structured database for you, and then essentially as we go, it's going to make recommendations and flag if there's any issues along the way, right? So we know in real time automatically what the issue is and then what the actual recommendation is to get that fixed, right? So we're going to fast forward here for a second, and what you're going to start to see is the center is going to actually populate, and it's actually going to tell you what the agent's doing, essentially what the score of the process is at each step, so you can actually know what to be fixed, what's actually approved, and based on your actual business rules of your organization, it's actually going to be fine to that process, so it actually knows what to flag and not flag, and it's a complete audit trail that you're seeing. So you're not only getting a data extraction, data lineage, but you're actually getting a process lineage, right? Because it's actually telling you everything it's doing along the process, and it's giving you the reasoning it actually took to make that decision. So these aren't kind of agents happening in the background. These are agents who are actually telling you what they're doing in real time, and the entire process is actually going to be documented in that way. And so if you think about kind of the getting lots of different unstructured data that can be complex, you're actually trying to apply business and compliance rules to that. The agents are actually taking that and actually doing that all for you, and you have a human in the loop in the sense that you can actually approve or actually reject the process that the agents are doing at any time, and you can actually edit that yourself, right? So at the end of this, you're actually going to see an entire end-to-end IGO, NIGO process fully done in an agentic workflow. So now you saw a piece of our IGO, NIGO demo, but keep in mind on our periodic table, we have many demos, right, for given the type of use cases that someone could be working on. Please contact us at NTT DATA anytime if you're interested either in a demo, learning more about Agentic AI, or actually have a specific use case that you'd like to talk through.